This is Knysna Forest, internationally known for its beauty and the mystique of the 1,000 or more elephants that once roamed freely amongst the massive trees that form part of the forest's protective environment. The vast forests occurring in Ptorius land were soon penetrated by hunters and loggers. And on the 26th of June 1782, what must be the first documented hunt of an elephant in Africa took place at De Poort, some 5 kilometers from the Knysna Elephant Park. By 1830, Ptorius land was gradually acquiring the reputation for beauty, which led to its becoming known as the Garden Route. At the same time, it had become a hunter's and sportsman's paradise. The axe and the gun had dominated the scene. The time for sanctuaries and reserves for the wildlife had not yet arrived. In 1867, Queen Victoria's 16-year-old son, Prince Alfred, visited South Africa. On their ship's voyage to Knysna, an elephant hunt was organized for the young prince. A vivid account written by Nemo read, "On the 2nd of November 1867, a hunt took place where 2 elephants perished, numerous being wounded. Henry Barrington of the farm Portland near Renendal and a known naturalist lamented, 'And now our troubles begin. The poachers have learnt how to kill elephants, and the government at work trying to preserve, and we shall have some silly law binding on the better class and never to be enforced against the poachers.' But Barrington wasted ink on paper. Gold was discovered at Milkwood near Knysna in 1876, and by May 1885, 1,400 claims were being worked. 6 hotels sprung up and flourished, but within the space of 5 years, the mushroom town became a ghost town. It is presumed that many of the redundant gold miners turned to poaching elephants for their ivory to earn a living. Man was determined to dominate the environment with gun, axe, fire, and plough. Elephants are social animals and always operate in herds of cows and youngsters, only expelling old bulls from the herd, this making them easy targets for eager hunters. Fortunately, the elephant has some friends. Captain Christopher Harrison, conservator of forests, sickened by the slaughter, made strong pleas for the protection of these magnificent animals. In November 1876, he reckoned there were only 400 to 500 left out of the thousands that had once roamed the forests. Even though in 1908 the elephants were proclaimed royal game, the Knysna Forestry Department had virtually no authority to stop the hunters. Licenses were issued free of charge to kill elephants, frequently without the knowledge of the authorities. Over the next 30 years, the elephant population declined until only 40 to 50 animals remained. Captain Harrison's successors repeated his pleas for conservation, but the colonial government was not interested. By 1920, the elephant herd had declined still further, and only 20 elephants remained. Then came another blow, from which the Knysna elephants would never recover. Major P.J. Ptorius, who had wrought such havoc among the adder elephants, received permission to shoot one Knysna elephant for science, to determine whether or not these elephants belonged to a separate species. He had to make sure that it is only one old bull because the numbers remaining is very small. The hunt started on the 11th of July. 5 elephants died as a result of this hunt. In 1971, a senior official in the Department of Forestry ordered that Aftant, a legendary mischievous bull, be shot. This subsequently led to a court case, the charges being the legal hunt of a protected wild animal. The guilty party were acquitted and left Knysna soon thereafter. The Department of Forestry promised to be more vigilant about the elephants, but this promise was never kept. Little was heard of the elephants after this incident until 1980, when the Department of Forestry announced that only 2 elephants and a calf that had been born in 1971 could be located in the forests. On receiving this depressing news, the Knysna Centre of Wildlife Society, as it was then known, organized a petition. Over 4,000 signatures were obtained, which showed how strong the local feeling was that the Knysna elephants should survive. This petition was presented to the then Prime Minister, Mr. P.W. Botha, by Margot Mackay and Des Freeman of the Wildlife Society, but it fell on deaf ears. Then, in 1998, Clive Walker and Dr. Anthony Hall Martin formed the Rhino and Elephant Foundation and worked tirelessly to enable a translocation of elephants from the Kruger National Park's cull to the Knysna Forest. It took nearly a year working with the Wildlife Broking Services before, on the 26th of April 1994, the Minister of Environmental Services, Professor Kedar Asmal, announced his approval for the introduction of 3 young female elephants into the Knysna Forest. The Rhino and Elephant Foundation agreed to pay for the insurance premium, and the Mazda Wildlife Fund undertook to pay for other expenses, including the transport. On the 16th of July at 6 a.m., 3 young elephant cows were released into a boma in the Knysna Forest, witnessed by forestry officials, media personnel, Rhino and Elephant Foundation representatives, and representatives of the Wildlife and Environmental Society of South Africa. This was the culmination of 14 long years of campaigning by the Knysna Centre of the Wildlife Society to translocate elephants to the area. 3 months after the arrival of the Kruger Park elephants, an inquiry was directed to the Department of Forestry on the number of original Knysna elephants still remaining in the forest. An intensive search was launched in the area, known to comprise the elephant's favorite range. Only 1 indigenous elephant could be found, and it was not the young bull. The sole survivor was a mature cow aged about 45, the matriarch, the mother of the young calf. This was indeed sad news, and a terrible blow to the whole project. This led to an overview of the Elephant Relocation project, which was held on the 5th of October 1995. Various options were discussed, but ultimately it was decided to retain the status quo and only remove the relocated elephants when problems arose. Sadly, the youngest elephant died of pneumonia shortly after their encounter with the matriarch, which then left the other 2 alone to their own devices. As they moved out of the forest into private land, in 1996, damage to fences and citrus crops were reported, and it was then recommended to remove the 2 remaining Kruger Park cows and translocate them yet again, this time to Shamwari Game in the Eastern Cape. At 11 p.m. on Tuesday, 20th July 1999, after 46 hours of loading, traveling and offloading into the crates, the ordeal was over, and the final chapter in the Knysna elephant story had begun as the truck departed the forest for Shamwari. After 31 years of active involvement with the Knysna forest elephant, Wildlife and Environmental Society of South Africa representatives were again present, but only to wave their sad farewells this time. In 2020, Sandparks released their findings from a lengthy survey using trail cams through the forest. The elephant itself is shy, doesn't trust or like people, and she only has to walk 10 meters to be completely hidden by vegetation. These cameras are triggered by movement, and they even operate after dark. Any animal crossing the lens will activate the camera to start filming. They set up 80 of these cameras right throughout the forest, and they sat back for many months and monitored. When they analyzed the footage, they were amazed. 140 elephants walked into frame, and the cameras did their job. But all was not well. Something about the elephants they saw made them look more closely, and to their shock, they found that they had photographed the same animal 140 times, an enormous land mass with only one elephant. A blow for conservation, tourism, and even the country. The death of the last elephant will signal the end for the forest. In years to come, the Knysna forest will die, because the elephants died. The forest cannot survive without the elephants. For centuries, the elephants have maintained the forest. Everywhere elephants exist, they are gardeners. Elephants keep rivers flowing and stop erosion. The easiest one for us to understand is the dispersal of seeds in their dung. And without elephants spreading seeds, ready to germinate, new trees don't grow. One of the biggest problems in a forest is light reaching the ground. Without sunlight, forest floor plants cannot grow and sustain the wealth of vertebrae and invertebrate life that play a role in the ongoing success of a forest. How much would we lose as a people if we woke up to the fact that there are no elephants left in the Knysna forest? It is now my honor and privilege to introduce you to our last remaining elephant in the Knysna forest. Probably the saddest, loneliest elephant in the world.